Welcome to the How to Quit Working show. This is the only show that brings you awesome people just like you who got sick and tired of doing something they don't like and don't care about and have created an amazing life of freedom using what they know instead of just getting paid for what they do. And now, here's your host, the Quit Working guy, Jeff Steinman.
This is Jeff Steinman. Welcome to the podcast. Today I am super excited because I have Jeff Wilson, who is an HGTV host, and he is also an avid hiker. He loves to cook and is very into music and loves sharing that with his wife and family, and he has built a lifestyle that allows him to do that. And I'm so excited to have Jeff Wilson here. Jeff, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. This is awesome. As I was telling you before we started the interview, I don't watch television anymore, but when I did, I was a bit of an HGTV and DIY network geek and addict, so I am a little bit excited and starstruck to have an actual HGTV host here on my podcast.
Yeah, well, you and I guess my mom watches a lot of HGTV too. So
it's one of the most popular cable networks, I believe.
Oh, it is. It is absolutely unbelievably popular. I'm surprised. Everywhere I go, you mention that HGTV, and people are all over it.
Yeah. But the thing that I think is so fascinating about you is you didn't just read the 4-hour work week and decide to put it in action. You have been at this for a long time, right? You've been designing your lifestyle for a very long time.
It's true. Jeff, I've only had one job in my life where I received, I should say after college, one job where I received a W-2 and worked for somebody else. Since my early 20s, I've actually, after I left that first job, I've worked for myself essentially.
Okay.
And it's nothing huge. I mean, I didn't go into life thinking I was going to be an HGTV host. I think mostly I looked at opportunities that came along and walked through a lot of open doors. I failed at a lot of things, but and I failed at actually becoming an HGTV host many times before I finally got a job there.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. I went through many auditions where I got very, very close, and then the job for one reason or another. The show didn't happen. They didn't like it, whatever. But yeah, that's another story in itself. But no, my story. The reason that I've set my life up the way I have goes back to when I was a kid. My father was a civil engineer and actually was pretty high up in a company, a concrete formwork company. He was a manager and eventually like a step below vice president.
Okay.
And he worked for this company for 35 years. He started working for them when he was in college co-oping, and he was downsized when he was 55. He spent his whole life working for this company, moving his family around, and it was. To me, what happened was that, well, let me. I guess I need to go back. He spent his whole life moving his family around, and giving himself to a company that eventually just dismissed him at 55. And what happened to him after that was like Willie Loman in A Death of a Salesman. I mean, my dad was that character. He lost his mind essentially, and ended up he fell into depression, never could quite get a job, ended up from that deep depression, the doctors think, pushing early, basically starting up Alzheimer's that would have come much later in his life had he not had this sort of serious depressive time in his life. So, and he ended up at 68 passing away from complications from that disease. Now, I saw him get treated badly by that company all my life, and I saw him jump through hoops to stay with them. And so I came through school, through college, knowing that I really didn't want to end up working for someone else. I didn't want to end up in his position. I needed to be independent. As luck would have it, when I finished a classical piano degree in Wisconsin and moved to Seattle, I met a gal who was eventually to become my wife, and she and I was rereading Walden, Henry Thoreau's Walden, which is a great book if anybody's thinking about an independent lifestyle. It's a great place to start.
I've totally added it to my list based on what we were talking about. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's if you don't know the story, for people who are listening, it's the story of Thoreau. This is the 1850s. He moves to a cabin that he builds, a simple cabin that he builds from things that he salvages on a pond, and lives there for 2 years. And his question to himself is, can you be happy or can you be happier living with less than having all the trappings of modern life. And so, as Sherry and I, we sort of met in Seattle and both enjoyed hiking and backpacking and music. I have the classical piano degree and play a lot of jazz. She plays a mean alto sax. And so we would play music together and hike, and we would talk over these issues. What would life be like if we lived as simply as possible? And what I mean by that is, to have few things that you want and really focus on the things that you need so that you have plenty of time to yourself to decide what to do with your time. Otherwise, as you gather more and more things, a bigger house, a speedboat, bigger, more expensive cars, those things require that you work to keep them up, and that requires your time, and it'll take your time away from things that you would probably rather be doing than working for the man, right?
Sure.
So we consciously designed our lives around what would make us happy day to day. We wanted to be able to hike together, play music. Those were things we knew we liked. We loved to cook together, and for other people, like have friends over and hang out. We like to be with our family and travel, and have experiences instead of spending all of our time working to get things. So it seems kind of odd that I ended up as an HGTV host because I studied music. I studied music. I had done a bunch of construction growing up. I hated it. I told my father I would never get into construction. And what's funny is with a classical piano degree, well, that kind of ensured that I ended up working in construction if I didn't become a teacher or work for a university or something.
Sure.
So, and as much as I enjoyed music, I really didn't want to become a teacher. And so I worked construction. I worked as a carpenter, kind of freelance, and did a lot of remodeling as a contractor, basically working for myself. In the meantime, I had gotten into doing some voiceover work at the studio where I worked right out of college. I got a classical degree, but I got a minor in recording technology, so I had to do 4 credits in a recording studio, 4 internship credits, which meant that I learned some skills there with recording, but also I saw the voiceover artists coming in and out, and I realized these actors had a really good life. They worked for themselves, they had lots and lots of clients, and they made pretty good money in a short time, and that gave them time to pursue other things. Most of them were stage actors who used voiceover to fund their stage acting careers.
Okay.
So, and I had done some acting, and I enjoyed theater. I'd done theater through high school and college, so I thought, well, I could probably do some of this voiceover stuff. And I asked them to help me out, and they taught me a few things about voiceover, and every once in a while they would call me into a studio. I was working in the dub room, the machine room of the recording studio at the time.
Okay.
This is the one job I had, the one hourly paid job I had.
Okay.
And so I would go in and I'd bark like a dog, or I'd sing in the choir, or I'd be part of the crowd, whatever it was. And they would give me a few dollars, or here's $20, go buy some beer. And, and eventually I had a reel, and I learned how to cut that together, and I gave it to an agent, and just started kind of doing it on the side.
Okay.
At that point, some of the music that I had written had gotten to Nashville, and I was hired by a publisher there to write country songs. Didn't pay very much. It was just a draw, maybe $250 a week, and they gave me a free cabin to live in out in the woods. And I did that for a couple of years till the small company that I worked for started to go under. It was a small publishing company. I made it big there. I enjoyed writing, but never made it big. In the meantime, though, I actually got a job doing the Opryland, which was the big theme park at the time. I got a job doing a voiceover work for them for a year, and that's a independent kind of job. They paid me to come in once a month and do all their radio and TV, and I'd go home and made a pretty sizable check.
Well, that's cool.
Well, that's about the point that it dawned on me. This really is the way that I should go. I have some talent. I knew how to do the voiceover, and I thought, well, if I could get, if I could marry my home improvement skills, all my carpentry skills and building skills with what I was doing, that might be too. So I got an agent. I started doing auditions, and eventually I had a client base and was making a decent living. I'd say at the time in Nashville, we're talking the late '90s. Early 90s, around the mid 90s, making maybe $25,000, $30,000 a year. Not a lot, but you have to realize I was making that on my own time with most of the day off. I mean, I was making an hour or two of work average per day, maybe.
Wow.
And traveling a lot still. I was able to fit it into travel schedules. And my wife was running a small coffee cart. She bought a little espresso cart and stuck it in a building. Okay. And that tied us down for a while. I have to say that was independent, and we worked for ourselves, but it was a lot of work and not as lucrative as we had hoped.
Sure.
So time goes by. We have children. We're in Nashville. We have our first child, and we start thinking really about the long-term future. And we're thinking, what, with a child now, how do you work with a family? And we had always wanted to move back to the Northwest. That's where my wife is from. Her family's there, and she really wanted to go back to the Seattle area. But every time we went back, we found it was more expensive, more crowded, less of the kind of life that we really wanted. And we learned that in Nashville, where things were really cheap at the time, we could live on very little and live really well. So, we at one point, I'd been casting about for what to do because we didn't want to stay in Nashville. It wasn't really the town for us. And and by the way, I skipped a portion of our life that's kind of interesting. Quit our jobs. When we quit our jobs, my wife worked for Boeing up in Seattle.
Okay.
She'd worked for them for 5 years, and I had worked for this recording studio for 2 years. And we quit our jobs. We saved about $4,000 or $5,000. Quit our jobs, moved into a long bed Toyota truck, and traveled the country for a year. Backpack.
Oh, now that's awesome.
Well, and again, using that frugal lifestyle, we only spent $3,800 that year. This is 1993.
Oh,
we
wow.
spent $3,800 on our gas, our lodging, our food, everything. We ate out.
For an entire year?
Yeah. That was living in the back of the truck and backpack. So we actually only got one hotel that whole time. Oh, and we stayed at people's homes that we knew and friends and family around the country. But we traveled the whole country, mostly the West, going to wilderness area after wilderness area, spend a couple of weeks in the woods, come back out, call somebody and say, hey, can we grab a shower and we'll be on our way? And we hang out in one town or another for a couple of days and then go to the next wilderness area. So that was formative too, because we really learned exactly how little we could live on.
Yeah.
And that was actually after a trip that I took. I had quit my first round at school at the University of Michigan in '87. I'd been there for a year and a half. Decided I didn't want to do business and computers, which is what I was doing at the time. Going to the corporate life, seeing that ahead of me.
I recognize that.
Yep. Well, I quit in the middle of school. My parents were not pleased, and I got onto the Appalachian Trail, and I had $400 in my pocket, and I walked 1,000 miles that summer until my money ran out. And then I moved to Idaho and lived in a ski town for a while to save money. And I had decided that I would go back for music, and I indeed did. About a year later, I went back and got my music degree. So this whole idea of living simply has been something that has been in my mind and for a long, long time. But back to our family story, we decided leaving Nashville, do we go back to the Northwest where it's expensive, crowded, we get into the rat race, or do we do something else? What is that something else? We decided to research towns. What is it that we love in a town? Just like we set up what is the perfect day for us, and then we tried to build our life around it. We said, what would the perfect town look like? We said it would be a college town because we like the diversity that a college town has and all there is to do in a college town.
Yeah.
We said it would be under 100,000 people. Okay. Because we wanted a place where we could not only, we thought at the time we wanted to live in the country. We wanted a place where we could buy land in the country and build like a perfect green home, a dream home in the country. So we'd have to be, like I said, under 100,000 people. And then we started looking like topographically or geographically, where would it be? And my wife we didn't want to go any farther south. Nashville was the limit there. You go too far east, it gets crowded and expensive again. You go too far north. I thought about Ann Arbor because that's where I grew up, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Great town, but my wife said too far north, too much snow, a little too cold.
Yeah.
So you far west then, without going to the West Coast, and it's basically flatland. We wanted something that had some interesting topography and geography. So that left us, when you started putting pins on a map, that would leave us with a lot of towns.
And you knew exactly what you wanted.
Well, that's just it. We kept trying to focus on how we could, it needed to be a town where it wasn't going to be so expensive that we would kill ourselves on our daily life.
Sure.
And that's how we ended up in this. We live in a little college town in southeastern Ohio. Inexpensive place to live. We own a house in town and 60 acres in the country. Quite honestly, we've decided not to move to the country because we decided the amount of driving going back and forth from town to here would just ruin our lives. It's just too much driving. Okay. So we live in a house that we nearly own. Actually, that's the subject of a book that I've just written, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But we've basically structured our where we live has become our work, and I've basically taken jobs that will keep me home as much as possible. Okay. And when I travel, I try to take jobs that only pay over a certain amount, so that I know that it's really, really worth it.
Yeah. So like When you do it, one of the HGTV shows, do you fly somewhere and record like a season or so worth of those in a couple weeks? Is that how that works?
Yeah, it depends on what we're doing. I'm involved right now with the HGTV Dream Home and HGTV Green Home DIY Network, the blog cabin, all the homes that they give away, and we'll fly to a place. We'll fly to the Dream Home 3 times during the time that it's built, and do maybe 3 videos at each time I go to talk about how it's built. So that's I might go for Scripps Networks. That's HGTV Food Channel, Cooking Channel, or Food Network, Cooking Channel, Travel Channel. They own all of those. I do a lot of voiceover commercials for them, and then I do on-camera hosting for those giveaway homes. And I might fly out for them 4, 5, 6 times a year. I also am the Thompson's Water Seal spokesman, national spokesman. I just got back from a taping in LA of the Hallmark Home and Family Channel, where I'll go show people how to take care of. I showed how to make interesting flower boxes, deck boxes, basically.
Cool.
Talk about deck care or whatever. So I work as a public relations guy for them. And then because things went a little started to get slower during the recession, I launched into a project that I'd been wanting to do for a long time. My father and my great-grandfather were both into green building back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And so that's been in my blood for a long time. And instead of building a new green home, what I did was take my 70-year-old home and deep energy retrofit it, which is like weatherization on steroids.
Wow.
To save 85% on my energy. So that process is unlike a typical weatherization process. So we filmed HD video the whole time. My wife is a videographer. And I wrote a book about the subject. So
that's cool. Well, the weatherization sounds cool because right now it's 30 degrees in St. Louis, and I'm sitting in my just about 100-year-old house, and my hair is practically blowing from the draft.
Right.
So
And
I'm sure that's a lot of work.
Right, that's where it came from. It was a lot of work, but honestly, it also fits in with our lifestyle.
Yeah.
We have a small house. That's another part of being, I think, being frugal and leading a life that's frugal and carefully your own, I guess I should say. But we live in 1,000 square feet with the 4 of us, and we have our 2 businesses here. My wife's an artist and does work with bottles, and basically makes furniture and pendant lighting out of old discarded wine and liquor bottles. And so we make it work in a small space. But that small space also, like I said, it's less maintenance, it's less expensive to run. We can close it up and leave it. It was less expensive to buy in the first place, and I practically own it. So the deep energy retrofit worked with that ethic, I guess, to make sure that we have basically no energy bills into the future. So if energy prices spike, I'm not going to lose my house because I can't afford, to pay my gas bill or my electric bill.
Sure.
Anyway, all fits together like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, yeah, and I know that, like, being able to spend as much time with your family as possible, that's been an important part of how you've designed your life. And I thought it was really interesting when you were saying that you saw how your father suffered from working in the corporate world and doing that kind of traditional route, made you go a completely different direction. What do you think your kids are going to do?
It's an interesting question because they don't see this life as odd. But realize I'm here most mornings, except when I have to travel, like the last 2 days when I was in LA. Every morning I wake up, I feed them breakfast. I help them pack their lunch if they need that help. My wife gets them off to school, and then I'm there in the afternoon when they come home, or I pick them up. Like my younger daughter, her school is 3 blocks from the house. I'll walk them and get her, and I'm here to make dinner. With them in the evenings. I'm basically around most of the time. And then because our life is structured the way it is, we basically shut our house down in the summertime, and we jump in a little camper and a little hard-sided A-frame pop-up camper, and we spend 1 month, usually the month of June, driving across the country so that we can have these wilderness experiences with the kids, backpacking, canoeing, hiking, all over the states. And then we end up near Portland, Oregon, where my wife's family has a cattle ranch right on the Columbia River, about a half an hour out of Portland. And we park that camper on the beach of the Columbia, and we live there for a month with the family. And I basically commute on a bicycle to town every day to the library to have Wi-Fi at the library, and I'll fly in and out of the Portland airport there for shoots and stuff. So we and then we come back about the second week of August, and kids are ready to go back to school again. So we have the flexibility to take some of our work with us. I'm able to do voiceover from the road with my laptop setup. We have our HD cameras. If we're working on the road for Thompson's, we might be shooting stuff about decks for them. So we're able to we're free enough with the technology
Yeah.
to do that. But really, I think the trick, what you're talking about becoming an expert and making a life out of what you know, that's a sort of constantly evolving thing. I find that one of the nice things about being independent and having the extra time is that as I see the horizon shift, like during the recession, I can say, well, what skill could I learn that would make me more saleable in my business?
Yeah.
And so I had never edited video before 2008. But at that point, I talked with one of my clients, and they had wanted to do web video really badly, but they didn't want to hire crews, spend $1,500, $2,000 a day, hire a crew, and then have us go out. We were shooting in national parks, and they said, we do that, and it rains, and we still have to pay people, and it's ridiculously expensive. And so I told them, hey, I travel in the summer. If I buy the $6,000 HD camera and learn to edit video, would you hire us as a production company on top of hiring me as your expert spokesperson to produce these videos? And I gave them a price that was well below what they would pay, but at the time we're getting paid to do our summer travel anyway.
Yeah.
And so by looking for angles like that and spending time learning a new skill, several skills, and that's developed into a very small production company where we can offer a client, really high quality HD video from our production company in conjunction, or we can run it for our own projects, like the Greenhouse Effect, which is my book and video project on this house. We're able to basically take a story and produce it on a whole bunch of media.
See, now that's what I call job security. Everybody says they want to go and they want to get a corporate job and they want to, or a government job, and they want to stay in that so that they have security. And I'm telling you, I was in the corporate world for 15 years, and I saw layoff after layoff, after firing, random firings, and just all the different things that happen. There is no security. What you're talking about, that is job security. I love it.
Well, you know what, Jeff? What's interesting about that is when you talk about working this way, and I have literally, I would say dozens, maybe 100 different clients every year. Some of them, are very small checks, and some of them are larger. Some of them are year-long contracts or year-long contracts. But I have many clients, lots of production companies all over the country who call me, send me a file. I do a voiceover, I send it back. They send me a small check. I did actually 3 different voiceovers just this morning in about a 20 or 30 minute period.
Wow.
And that's one part of the business, but I couldn't live on just that. I also have the public relations clients where like I said, I'll go do appearances. I was actually just in St. Louis.
Okay.
During the big storm last week, I was at the home show down in the America Center.
Okay, cool. I love going down there. I missed it this year, but it's always fun.
Yeah, but and then so there's the PR work. There's my work on television, which pays surprisingly little, but it's good for visibility and to get the other work, the corporate work. I do corporate films where I'm just a talking head and teach I teach Macy's employees how their retirement system works and all that. So and then I have the book that I'm writing. I've got a Buildopedia.com. I have an at-home video series there that I shoot for them, teaching people do-it-yourself projects. So it's about diversifying your knowledge base and your skills, and then it's about a large client base because like I said, you said this. There is no security in a corporate job. If you can be fired and lose everything and stop getting a check 2 weeks later. That's not security. Security is having a loyal client base and a large client base. Hey, I may lose some clients one year, but I'm going to get some more next year.
Yeah.
I will never see my income drop to nothing within a short period. It could potentially wind down if I don't nurture it. It could potentially wind down over time. So no, that to me, and then coupling that, it's funny because I speak at the university sometimes. They'll have me up to talk to an acting class or journalism class and ask, how is it? What's the one thing I can do to be successful in broadcasting or in acting? And I go back to that frugality issue. I mean, just having a frugal mindset, like Warren Buffett, right? Wealthiest man, one of the wealthiest men in the world. He still lives in the house in Omaha that the small house that he grew up in. You don't get rich by buying stuff.
Right. Sure.
You can be pretty rich by not buying stuff.
Yeah.
So,
That is cool. Well, what is the biggest piece of advice that you would give to somebody who wants to have a lifestyle like yours?
Yeah, it's the frugality thing. It really is.
Okay.
It's really examining what's important to you. What's important to me, I can't say what's important to somebody else. Maybe the speedboat and the toys, maybe that's the life that somebody wants. If you want that life, you'll have to figure it out for yourself. But for me, if I'm serious about how much I want to spend time with my family, I only have so many years with my kids before they leave, and see much. I want to spend every moment that I can with them. I want to be able to do the daily things like we talked about. We want to have a lot of time with friends. We want to be able to eat and drink well with them and have great conversations. We want to be able to travel and experience things. So last summer, I took my family to Europe, and I'd never been. My wife had been before, but I had not. We had a choice. Do we go to Germany and France and or Spain, or do we go to which would have cost an arm and a leg? Or do we try and save a little money and do something different? What we ended up doing was traveling Eastern Europe, flew into the Czech Republic and rented a station wagon.
Okay.
And took a tent and a bunch of sleeping bags with us, and we car camped all over Eastern Europe. Through the Czech Republic, Hungary, down into Croatia, and up through Slovenia and Austria. We spent a month in that region, and we had experiences that people who spend money on their travel never would have.
Sure.
We stayed with families in their homes and farms. We camped out with Europeans from all over. Just had really good experiences. We instead of eating out at tourist-friendly restaurants, we shopped at grocery stores and learned how to get by. We had some hilarious experiences, but they're all really, really memorable.
Okay.
And so I just think that frugality that America is sort of just now kind of waking up to. It's the kind of frugality that our grandparents understood because they lived through the Depression.
Yeah.
And they really prized, because they lived through a time that was really difficult. They prized the things that were important, like family and friends and experiences. So I can't say that my life is not for everybody, and obviously I have a strange set of skills and knowledge that I'm able to exploit. But like you found, you have a certain set of skills and knowledge, and you can always add to the skills, and you can add to the knowledge, and make yourself, as you do that, and make yourself more valuable.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned that you have a strange set of skills, and you do, and I think it's really neat how you've taken what really are very different things, and you fit them together in order to create this awesome life for yourself. And I think many people...
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. I think so many people could be more successful at this if they looked at their skill sets more creatively. Like the fact that you were willing to jump in and learn to edit video, which there's a huge demand for that. There's a huge demand for lower priced video editing right now. I mean, you saw that and you jumped on it.
Right. It's an ad. I mean, I looked at it as an add-on to what I already do. If a company will hire me to be their spokesman, and I can offer my wife and as a videographer, and it actually does a whole bunch of things if you think about it. Not only does the company say, yeah, that's really valuable. We can get it's one-stop shopping. They can see the quality that we turn out, and it works for them. But then when I have to travel someplace, I'm traveling with my wife, and we together, and that's much easier on our relationship than having me fly out and be gone. Actually, I was at that show in St. Louis for 5 or 6 days. That's very rare for me that I'm gone for that length of time. I try to never go more than 2 nights and never more than twice a month.
Oh, okay.
But that's the kind of thing that I may look at that kind of job again at some point in the future and say, do I really want this? Is it worth the money to go and do this, or do I want to pick something else? I've turned down really good jobs.
Yeah.
I turned down a travel job in South America that would have been really cool to do, but it would have taken me away from my family for 5 weeks. And I just, it's just not part of what I want in life. And that's the part of it. It's if you can distill the things that are really important to you and then build, you're not just it's not just working hard. I enjoy the work that I do. And therefore, even when it's something hard and difficult, I can see the benefit, the reward of getting through it. I'm learning a new skill. I'm becoming, I'm broadening my knowledge base. It's allowing me to be here with my family, or travel in the summer like we do. It's a combination of working hard towards something and also looking for those open doors, those opportunities, and that's really the base of it. I have a friend who's an old hermit, kind of a hippie hermit, out in the woods in Nashville. I lived in that little cabin I told you while I was writing songs.
Yeah.
And his name is Lewis. And Lewis would see me come back from auditions sometimes, and I didn't get the job or whatever, and it was a job I wanted, and he would say, Well, the first thing he would say to me is, when I said I wanted something, I wanted to do something, he would say, pray and move your feet. And what he meant by that was, you got to work hard at something.
Yeah.
And then when things don't work out the way that you want, he said, if not this, then something better.
Yeah.
And those two things, it's funny, but they're simple, but they're really good ideas. You pray for what you want. I mean, praying, however you do that. For me, it's I think about how I want things to be, and then I move my feet. I work until I work so that I can attain that, and without worrying about I think one of the biggest problems that people have is you were talking about security. Healthcare is a big part of that.
Yeah.
And I think people would be willing to take more chances if they didn't have the issue of healthcare. And it's a hard thing. I'm hopeful that our country will move toward a system that's much closer to single payer, because I think that would unleash a lot of creativity and productivity in America.
Yeah.
People could stop worrying about can I afford healthcare? Can you imagine the number of startup companies we would have, and the amount of innovation as people just decided to take more risk? It'd be incredible.
Yeah.
But I solved the problem by using an HSA, a health savings account, with a high deductible. Instead of looking at healthcare as healthcare, instead of prepaying my healthcare with a big monthly premium, we pay roughly for the whole family $3,000 a year for the 4 years. That gives us about a $15,000 deductible when all is said and done.
Yep.
And what I figure is this: it's insurance.
Yep.
If I break a leg and I have to pay $5,000, I will pay that out of the money I've saved in my health savings account. So it's a high deductible healthcare plus savings account that's tax free.
That's exactly what I do. I have a very similar plan, and I think that the thing that people you got to change the way you think about healthcare when you're self-employed, because that's exactly the way I look at it. It's like, if I got to go have my appendix taken out or something like that, I'm good. I'm going to have a significant deductible to pay, but I'm good, and I've got that money available. The other thing that I think is so cool about this lifestyle is you're just purely by the nature of this lifestyle, you are healthier. It is preventative healthcare. Do you agree?
Yeah. We look at this holistically too. So healthcare to us is not just about healthcare is different, like I said, from insurance. So insurance just means that I won't lose my home, my business,
sure.
The computers, the car that I need to get around. That insurance means my uppermost bill in a year is $15,000. I can go many years, and even if I had a sickness that lasted several years and I maxed out my health insurance, I'm never going to have a debt of more than $40,000 or $50,000 at the worst, and that's actually, while bad, that's manageable.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to take my business away from me.
Sure.
On the healthcare side, you're right. I have time to run 20 miles a week. I have time my wife and I'll run 3 or 4 times a week. On the off days, my wife and I'll spend an hour hiking in the hills right here on the edge of town. On the days when we're not running or working out more heartily. And we own this 60 acres in the country, and I do conservation work out there. If it's a sunny day, I can leave my desk and run out there and spend 4 or 5 hours doing conservation work. And we consider all of that part of our healthcare. We also consider the food that we eat part of our healthcare.
Sure.
We're very careful about what we eat and how we eat. We eat very little processed food, and we're serious about organics and those sorts of things. And so we. I think America is sort of let their eye off the ball a little bit because we've been so wealthy over the last 40 or 50 years, and I think without the experience of having to get by on little or having to really fend for yourself, I think people have become very I don't know, they become kind of weak in a way. They don't trust their own minds, they don't trust their own bodies, and and like I say, kind of subservient to that idea of security.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about your book that you've got coming out?
Yeah, that'd be great. That's part of this lifestyle. Allowed me to take on this project. Like I said, my great grandfather, and my father were big into green building, and they have been for many years. They're both gone now, but I've always kind of felt like that's something that I've tried to get HGTV and Do It Yourself Network to do more of, especially on the efficiency end.
Yeah.
And I told you a little bit about how the story came about, but yeah, right around the recession, around 2007, I could see 2007 to 2008, I could see that recession kind of coming. Because what happens to me is all the extra little jobs that are kind of icing on the cake, they start to fall off as companies start to pull their money in.
Oh, okay.
And I turned to my wife at that point and I said, we've decided not to move to the country. We have this great house in town, but it works like an old house. It smells swampy from the basement. It's got radon in it. It's drafty. We've done what we could weatherization wise. We'd replaced a couple of windows. We'd blown some insulation into the walls and done some weather sealing, and we'd saved about 15% on our energy bills. But I said, these buildings the old buildings in this country need a serious, we need a way to fix them seriously. And I started researching it a little bit and found a process called a deep energy retrofit. So I put the story together this way. And remember that whenever I have an idea or my wife has an idea, the first pitch we have to make is to our spouse.
Okay.
So are we all we're either all in it together,
yeah,
or we're not. So if she can shoot me down on things and I can shoot her down if it doesn't really fit our lifestyle.
Cool.
And that goes for everything. We've told each other, look, you don't like where we live. You want to, no matter how bizarre or wild that your lifestyle change might be, the other one's going to listen at least and make a concerted effort to help it happen or explain why it's not going to happen.
That's so cool, though.
My first pitch to her was for this project. When I first told her about deep energy retrofitting the house, she said, it sounds too expensive, we can't afford it, and it's going to take up too much of our time, and it's not worth it. And so I said, well, what if I could come up with a way that that would make it, or how could I make it palatable to you? And she said, well, maybe we can use our video skills, or there are ways that we can make it cost less for us. And so here was the plan that I came up with. I wanted to deep energy retrofit the house and make it part of our work by filming HD video of the whole process for people.
Okay.
Like I said, writing the book along the way, blogging about it, and then also involving companies that I was already working with, and a lot of companies that I sort of met out of the blue, I cold called, by asking for material as a sponsorship.
Oh, wow.
Almost half of the project's cost I traded for HD video and involvement sponsorship in the project. So LP Building Products, for example, donated all of the siding and a lot of the lumber for the project, and some sheathing, things like that, trim. Provia Windows exchanged windows and doors for involvement in the project, and HD video for their site. Foam It Green spray foam. So I probably closer to a dozen companies that got involved. And as we shot, I've been editing videos together for them and for my site, separate videos.
Okay.
So in the end, and also we had to do an addition at the time as well. We had to take off an old garage that was falling off, a garage addition, and add on and put a new addition on. Okay. Replace it basically. So I designed that in a way that we could rent out the upstairs if we needed to. It's actually become my wife's and my suite. It's got a little loft apartment kind of suite. Okay. But if we designed it so that it would be rentable, if our fortunes took a nosedive, I could shut the door to the rest of the house, and we could rent it out to a college student, and easily around here probably $500-600 or more a month, just doing that. So it would. I made it so that it would pay for itself. Okay. And we still had to take a leap of faith. We still had to take out a home equity line of credit to pay one of the crews. I hired a crew. I did a lot of it myself, but I did hire a crew for the heavy lifting, framing up the addition, pouring foundation, those sorts of things. But the rest of the work, the retrofitting work, the siding, the windows and doors and things, I did all that myself, and my wife helped as well. So basically, it's called I call the project the Greened House Effect, past tense, GRENED, and because at the time I was also encountering a lot of philosophical debate about energy, and I was reading a lot, and actually I had been hired as a voiceover artist for some books on tape. And one of them happened to be on energy issues, called Apollo's Fire. And I was reading a lot of Tom Friedman's books, Hot, Flat, and Crowded, some of those, that were explaining the energy issues in a way that it made a lot of sense as a builder, as somebody who's involved in construction. I realized there's a huge amount of energy lost in older buildings. So we have issues not only, let's say there are personal issues for efficiency. You're going to save a lot of money in the long haul if your energy bills are near zero. It makes your home more comfortable. It works more like a 21st century green home when you're, so that there are no drafts like you're experiencing in your house. And it also makes the indoor air quality in your home healthier, so that you're going to be less sick, short-term, long-term, both. So there are all those personal benefits, but I also realized there are benefits to putting, a lot of my friends in the construction industry were out of work and lost their businesses, lost their jobs. So one of my arguments was that you can also solve problems of the economy by putting construction workers back to work doing these kinds of retrofit jobs. You can solve problems of the environment because the less energy we use, Obviously, the less we're burning coal and we're using nuclear plants to generate that. And that's really the cleanest energy is what Amory Lovins from the Rocky Mountain Institute calls negawatts. They're the ones that we don't have to use.
Okay.
And if obviously we drop so much on the ground that if I can save 85% on my energy bills, that's a lot of energy savings.
Sure.
And that's a big effect on the environment. But also national security. These days, and this is a little more of a stretch, but bear with me. These days, electrons and BTUs generated from either coal plants or nuclear plants, BTUs from natural gas or oil, that energy is all kind of interchangeable. If you think about a plug-in hybrid car, it uses gasoline, but you plug it in and it's going to use electricity it could be coming from a coal plant, from a nuclear plant, or from solar panels. So that energy is becoming more fluid. We're able to use electricity in our transportation sector. Just doing a little bit of that, let's say taking a percentage of the energy I've saved and funneling it into a plug-in hybrid car or an electric car, and driving that around town, I would save the country from having to send someone to the Middle East to keep those oil shipping lanes open.
Sure.
It really can have a positive effect on our national security and our energy security.
Yeah.
So that's really part of what the book is about. It shows people my story and tells my story of my deep energy retrofit. It tells a lot of stories of other people all over the country who've done the same thing and the reasons that they've done it. And then it also kind of shows, here's the process, no matter where you live, here's the process of designing a deep energy retrofit for your house, and a lot of extra resources and technical resources that you can use, say if you're a pickup truck contractor or a builder who's more interested in learning about this remodeling process. So it's but then at the beginning and end, I talk about those philosophical ideas, and there are a lot of little points in there that make that a lot clearer.
That's awesome. And where can we go to get more information about the greenhouse effect?
Well, you can go to my website, thegreenhouseeffect.com. The book's available at this point. I believe it comes out beginning of June,
Okay.
end of May, I believe. It's available on pre-order at Amazon.com. Or you can go through my website.
All right. Well, we'll absolutely include it in a link. And for those of us who can't spell, is it AFF or EFFECT?
It's effect. Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
But the important part is it's a play on obviously the greenhouse effect.
Yeah.
But greenhouse effect. What happens when you turn your house green?
Excellent. Well, I'm going to put a link in the below the podcast to that, and definitely go check that out if you're interested. Well, Jeff, what is the biggest piece of advice that you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I think it's two parts. It's one piece of advice that has two parts. We constantly call our life frugal, creative, and unique, and I think the first two are the important parts. Being frugal and creative at the same time allows you to have a unique life, mm-hmm. and it's really just a matter of being willing to take some risks and being willing to fail and not worry about that, move on. So yeah, the frugal, creative part, that's I think the most important.
That's awesome. Your life and your business and your passion, it's all just completely inextricable. It's just all one big thing, and it's clear that you're just really enjoying what you're doing, and you're living the most of your life and enjoying your family and setting an awesome example for your kids, the people who are going to set an example for a lot more people. And I think that's awesome, and I cannot thank you enough for being here and letting me talk to you for a little bit. And I wish you the best of luck with everything you're doing, and I want to highly encourage everybody to go check out The Greenhouse Effect. There will be a link below, and check out Jeff's new book. Thanks a lot, Jeff, and I wish you the best of luck with everything.
You bet, Jeff. You're quite welcome.
Thanks for joining us on the How to Quit Working show. Tune in next time when we'll talk to another amazing person just like you who is now living the ultimate life of freedom and doing it on their terms. If you want to learn how to quit working and get these episodes delivered directly to you, visit howtoquitworkingshow.com.